Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 6th of September of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And probably the most important update and the most important event took place today in Kostiantynivka, the settlement that located on the west of Kostiantynivka in this area. Today, as a result of a missile strike, there was an explosion. Let's take a look at the video together. As you can see, this is a marketplace with a lot of people, and at some point, at some second of the situation, there was an explosion on this street, and that was the result of missile strike. Very bad situation. According to official information we have, according to the Ukrainian sources, up to 16 people were killed as a result of that attack. Of course, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, have already gave his own opinion about the situation. He reported that that was an attack of Russian Federation, that was a terrorist attack of the Russians. Very interesting that that strike fit the same days when Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State of the United States of America, visited Ukraine, and basically there was just 45 minutes between that attack and the speech of Blinken and Zelensky that they made together. Very interesting situation, and this is official version of Ukrainian side. That as a result of missile strike that made the Russians in the settlement of Kostiantynivka, there was an explosion, and as a result of that explosion, up to 16 people died. But you know that you can give official position whatever you like, but there is like ascent companies, ascent technologies, a lot of people whose main thing is to make geolocations and some recognizance. And if we take a look one more time at this video, the Russian sources published a lot of evidence that that strike was made not from the territory of Russian Federation, not from the Russian aircraft, not from anything that connected with the Russians. And the Russians are saying that that attack was made from the territory of Ukraine, to be more precise, from the settlement by the name of Drushkovka. This settlement is located a little bit to the northwest, this is Drushkovka, and there is like an airfield, Kramatorsk airfield, that probably the Ukrainians were using for that attack. So let's discuss this video in details. First of all, I would like to pay your attention to this woman. If you can see the icon of the mouse, take a look at this woman and take a look at the man that located a little bit on the top right from this woman. These two persons probably is the most important persons in this area. Just take a look at them, and if you take a look, you're gonna see that before the explosion, both of them turned their heads in direction of Drushkovka. The explosion, took place in direction of Donetsk, the capital of DPR, and basically the capital, the Russian territory. But both a girl and this man turned their head in direction of Kramatorsk and Drushkovka. All these events took place in among these streets in this area, and basically this is the area of explosion. And one more time, if we take a look at this video, we're gonna see that the woman and the man before explosion turned their head and looked in this direction. Of course, we can find a lot of explanations why they have turned their heads and why did they look in direction of Drushkovka but not in Kramatorsk. When talking about Ukrainians one more time, the main evidence is that the strike was on the territory of Ukraine. So if the strike was on the territory of Ukraine, that the only side that could do this strike is Russian Federation. So this is very simple logic, but sometimes this logic works. The Russians, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, haven't provided us any evidence, any details regarding that missile strike. The only information we got is from the open source intelligence organizations and so on. Another important thing, that right before that explosion, another Russian Telegram channel whose main business and main purpose to provide information regarding the Storm Shadows strikes published at 2 p.m. of the local time that there is a Storm Shadow missiles launches in the vicinity of Drushkovka. At 2 p.m. and 4 minutes there was another notification from the same channel that there was another missile strike from the same area. So as you can see, right before the strike, there were a lot of notifications from the Telegram channel whose main business is to provide this type of information, that there is a launches of missiles from the territory of Ukraine in direction of Donetsk and so on. If we take a look at this video one more time, we're gonna see that there is a timer and the bottom, and according to the timer, the explosion took place at 2 p.m. and 4 minutes of the local time. So basically at the same time when the channel provided us updates that the Ukrainians made the launches of Storm Shadow missiles, in a few seconds we got the explosions in the marketplace. But of course we can't rely on these updates and the Ukrainian information. We need a stronger evidence to understand whose strike was that. And probably the most important evidence that we can use for today is this video. Not this one, this video. This is the car. This is like gray car on the street. If we return back to the video of explosion, this is the car. You see this car, gray car that located between two white cars, this one, and this is the same car but a little bit zoomed in. And if we will launch the video one more time, we're gonna see one important evidence. Just a second, you see where to look, and this is missile. Probably, I hope you saw that there was a second that on the roof of this car we can see the sign of missile, and according to that mirror picture, we could see that the missile was flying now from the north, let's say from Druzhkovka, in direction of Kostiantynivka, so using this direction. I'm not going to make any conclusions. I can't tell you whether that attack was made by the Russian forces or by the Ukrainian forces. The only thing we have is official position of Zelensky and Kiev, and we have details that we got from ASIN channels, from ASIN organizations that split this video into many parts, analyzed and provide us completely different piece of information. Now let's move to the ground and let's start discussing the situation on the combat line. First, we're going to start with Robotyne area. Today we got a lot of details, a lot of updates from the battle of the settlement, from the Bradley Square. If you remember, yesterday we finished with the situation that the Russians launched their counter-offensive operation and attacked the Ukrainians in their flanks in the settlement by the name of Robotyne. And after that, few channels reported that the Russians managed to establish control and so on, a few streets and so on. And if you remember, I gave you my opinion that the purpose of that attack was to encircle and to cut the Ukrainian forces that were located on the fortifications that located on the north of Novoprokopovka from supply, and to encircle them as a minimal goal, to force them to step back, as the target, as the maximum goal is to create a cauldron and to encircle them. After that, we haven't received any updates regarding that situation, but today the only thing that we received without any geolocated videos or photos, that the Russians left the settlement completely, as we discussed yesterday, that it's was temporary operation. They left Robotyne, the central, the south and the northern part, but as a result of that operation, as a result of that counterattack, the Russians, just according to the text messages, managed to force the Ukrainians to step back from these fortifications, and currently the Russians restored control over the main hill that located on the north of Novoprokopovka. One more time, we haven't received even a single video confirmation of that recovering. The Ukrainians from their side published a series of videos how they were attacking, bombing the Russian forces along the main trenches, along the main fortifications. Maybe this is an episode of a Russian counterattack, as a result of which the Russians managed to restore control over this area. Very difficult to understand and to know. Anyway, this is the situation. Furthermore, another Russian ASIN channel managed to geolocate the video of Challenger destroyed. On this video we can see the exact moment when the Russians destroyed the British Challenger as a result of some strike. Probably that was artillery strike or anti-tank missile. Anyway, this is like the proof, and this is the real episode. Of course, from this angle it's very difficult to understand what exactly was attacked, was hit by the fire, but the author of this video claims that this is exactly that episode, and this situation took place, as you can see, among the fields, among Robotyne and Verbova. And the Ukrainians continued their offensive operation in the settlement, and today we got a lot of geolocated videos how the Russian forces were bombing and shelling the Ukrainian positions among the fields, which confirms that either these fields are under Ukraine control, or at least they have free access to this area and they can send like endless waves of infantry in direction of the settlement. So the Russians were bombing these areas not just with artilleries but also with drones. There were a lot of videos how the Russians were bombing with drones the trenches and the Ukrainian concentration of forces. From the other side, we got some videos from the Ukrainians how their forces were bombing and attacking the Russian positions inside the settlement. So basically, according to geolocations we got, the Ukrainians still haven't launched the main phase of assault operation. We're talking about the operation on the ground. There is just like drone strikes, artillery strikes without active clashes inside the settlement. Also, we got another interesting geolocation from the Robotyne, from Verbovo itself. On this video, we can see how the Russians moved another wave of reinforcement inside the settlement. So this video may tell us that the Russians continue sending more and more infantry in these directions, because currently they understand and they realize that Verbovo is the priority target for the Ukrainians. They are not going to complete the mission with Robotyne. They will try to keep as is with Robotyne, and currently the Ukrainians will pay their focus in this direction. As you can see, according to the geography, we see that Verbovo is probably 2 times bigger in comparison with Robotyne, so probably the Ukrainians will be forced to spend 2 times more days to capture the settlement, and probably 2 times more soldiers and manpower for the same purposes. But one more time, the active phase of storming of Robotyne hasn't started yet. The Minister of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of fierce clashes in this area, the Ukrainians lost 40 soldiers, 5 tanks, and 12 artillery systems. This is probably the most important piece of information for today when talking about Zaporozhye area. As you can see, the level of losses among infantry is very low, just 40 soldiers, and probably this is the lowest level of the losses between infantry since the beginning of the greatest Ukrainian counteroffensive operation. But when talking about the level of losses among artillery, the number is significant. For example, and I'll remind you that when talking about yesterday's situation, the Russians reported that Ukrainians lost around 8 artillery systems. The day before yesterday, 9 artillery systems. On the 3rd of September, the Ukraine lost also 9 artillery systems. And on the 2nd of September, the Ukrainians lost 5 artillery systems. So if we calculate the numbers, since the beginning of this month, the Ukrainians lost more than 42 artillery systems. And they lost not like the 20 howitzers or the 30 howitzers or Msta-B or Old Soviet. The Ukrainians were losing M777 howitzers, M109 Paladins, M119. The Ukrainians were losing the Vampire system. The Ukrainians were losing FH-70 British artillery system. So currently there is a real counter-artillery duels, and as we can see, the Russians do have artillery superiority, and they're not allowing the Ukrainians to change the situation and to take initiative in their hands. So we'll see, because currently this is the most important, and this is also another reason why the Ukrainians can attack and can do at least something with the Russian artillery just using HIMARS weapon. For example, HIMARS missiles. For example, now we are moving to Robotyne foothold, and on this video we see another episode when the Ukrainians took a decision to destroy just a regular Russian howitzer Msta-S with a HIMARS missile, which that cost and the price is probably 2 or 3 times bigger than when comparing with this artillery system. The Ukrainians basically don't have possibility to get their artillery system closer to the combat line because they lost initiative, and as soon as they do this, they're just destroyed in a few seconds or minutes. The only thing they can do is to attack and suppress the Russian artillery systems from hidden positions from very long distance using HIMARS missiles, and this is exactly what they're doing right now. They're trying to destroy a very cheap Russian artillery system using very expensive missiles of HIMARS. Maybe they have such possibilities, who knows? We're saying that maybe it's like not smart, not logic, but maybe they have such possibility to produce HIMARS so many missiles, so it's not a problem for them. When talking about the common situation on Robotyne foothold, as a result of clashes, the Ukrainians lost 105 soldiers in this direction. sorry, not 180 soldiers in this direction, 7 armored vehicles including 5 tanks, and the most of the losses the Ukrainians have during their another attempt to attack from Zolotyne in direction of Novodonetsk, from Prichistovka in direction of Novomayorsk, and of course from Ugledar and Vadiana in direction of Mikolskaya. All those attacks were repelled. One more time, some sources were saying that as a result of those attacks, the Ukrainians managed to capture some positions, yet we haven't received even a single confirmation of that progress. But anyway, this information was confirmed by the Russian sources, so probably the Ukrainians did achieve some success in this direction. Anyway, very difficult to understand. Today we received a lot of videos about the clashes that took place during the previous 24 hours, but when talking about the current situation, according to updates we have, there is no activity from the Ukrainian side in direction of the Russian position. So that was probably yesterday, very likely that was reconnaissance in force. Now they collected necessary information. Now it's job for very expensive HIMARS missiles, and after that they will restart their attempts to attack and to move further to the south. When talking about Donetsk direction, today we also see some activation from both sides, the Russians and the Ukrainians. For example, as a result of counter-attack in direction of Nivoyska, the Ukrainians managed to restore control over some positions among the fields. But the most important part of that update is that the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to repel another Ukrainian attack in the vicinity of Nivoyska. And after that, the Ukrainians published their own geolocated confirmation that they managed to capture the stronghold among these fields. The total losses of the Ukrainians on Donetsk direction is heavy, high as usual, 285 soldiers, and the main clashes took place in the vicinity of Donetsk and as usual in the vicinity of Klishchevka. The Russians continue pressure, increased the pressure in direction of Krasnogorovka. Today the Russians discover another anti-tank position in the vicinity of the industrial zone of the settlement to the southern part in the high-rise building area, and as a result of FPV drone the Russians destroy another point. You see this like grenadier position of Ukrainian forces, and FPV drone got exactly in the target and destroyed another Ukrainian position. I'm not sure about the losses, but anyway. And also the Russians managed to shut down and destroy another air defense system, Strela-10, that located behind Krasnogorovka. No active clashes on the ground, no attempts to storm each other's positions. Now we're moving to Klishchevka, Artyomovsk direction. Today we got another geolocation along the railways, and this video is very cruel. There is a lot of violence against the Ukrainian soldiers. So the main thing about this video is that Ukrainians, as a result of clashes that took place during the previous months, during the previous days, managed to get the railways not just from the south but also from the north of Andriivka, and establish some foothold. So currently the Ukrainians managed to encircle and establish operational encirclement of Andriivka from the south and of course from the north. It's very difficult to say whether the Ukrainians are able to hold these positions because they're under very heavy fire. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, and of course they tried to bomb and attack the Russian positions in Andriivka as well. Today this settlement is under very heavy fire, but we see that the Russians do have possibilities to send reinforcements, reserve, and currently the Russians still control the settlement, and as I understand they're not going to step back from this area without a battle. So anyway, the Ukrainians will be forced to storm this area, because if they continue holding their positions on the south and the north, the Russians will basically reduce their forces with drone strikes, with artillery strikes, because there are no fortifications on the south and on the north, and they don't have much time. They need to cut to establish control, operational encirclement or cauldron, and after that they need to launch like a very fast attack. But yet we haven't received any updates regarding this attack or something like this. The Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions in the fortifications on the north of Klishchevka, but yet also no attempt from the Russian side to counterattack in this direction. And another video from Kadema, another very interesting video. The Ukrainians discovered very cheap Russian howitzer, and one more time they took a decision to destroy this howitzer using the HIMARS missile. One more time, another usage, another explanation. The Ukrainians don't have possibilities to bring their artillery systems closer to the combat line because basically they will be destroyed immediately. And currently, the only thing they can is to attack and destroy the Russian positions with HIMARS missiles. And as soon as they're able to clear the artillery space, they will move their artillery system closer to the combat line, and only after that they will be able to normally support their storming and assault forces all over the combat line. But yet they are not able to do this successfully. When talking about Kupiansk-Liman, there are no changes in this area, just few geolocated videos like the video in the vicinity of Kovalyovka. The Ukrainians published the video how they were attacking, bombing and made the FPV drones attacks against the Russian tanks, artillery systems on the west of Kovalyovka, which also confirms that the Russians do control this territory. These areas under complete their control, and but there are no changes on the ground as well. The total losses of the Ukrainians in the Kupiansk-Liman front line were around 90 soldiers for the previous 24 hours. And that's it for today. Military Summer channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.